Now, we know the plunge protection team set up by Reagan in '87 has its fingers in the market and admittedly can control it. They're in the AP today saying, we're pumping the market up.
The plunge protection team, is a name given to what's called a working group on finance that was set up the day after the October 19th crash of 1987. I was working on Wall Street at the time. Bob Rubin, Alan Greenspan, Ronald Reagan created working group on finance, and the Tuesday, this is October 20th, 1987, the government bought S&P futures contracts to save America because the day after the crash of '87, it looked like there was going to be another crash, which every bank and insurance company would have been insolvent.
And so the power to save is the power to destroy. Now they're using it to engage in financial terrorism.
Well, they gave them that tool. They gave the government that tool to buy and sell market contracts, which is, in my opinion, that marks the beginning of the end of free market capitalism in terms of, in America, it's supposed to be the opposite of a centrally controlled Soviet-era command and control economy. It's supposed to be a free market. The government's not supposed to be fixing prices. But on that day, October 20th, 1987, was the beginning of a command and control government, centrally planned economy. It started off slowly, and then over the next 25 years, it kept building momentum, and now you've got guys like Bob Rubin and Tim Geithner and Ben Bernanke, and they are now the new World Committee that is got their finger on the weapons of mass financial destruction, and they believe they're doing God's work, and they move prices as they see fit to make a political end. In other words, these markets don't reflect economics at all. They only reflect a political agenda. It's pure price fixing with a political agenda attached. This is Soviet Union 1955, but done in a way where you've got everybody plugged into their computer, day trading, thinking that they're going to be the ones to beat the centrally planned central government. And at the same time, the central government is bringing about all of these extraordinary extra-legal measures to put people in jail.
All right, Max, got a break. Stay there. Let's talk about who you believe the culprits are from the evidence straight ahead. We're going to be taking your phone calls for Max Keiser on the economy, also George Humphrey, economist, in studio with us in the next hour. MaxKeiser.com is his website. My websites are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. We've got continual coverage of what's happening. We haven't even gotten into what's happening in Europe and Greece. What will Angela Merkel, what will Nicolas Sarkozy do? Why has Gordon Brown been forced to step down? I mean, this is a major shakeup. Now, I remember that last Thursday. They were about to pass a bill to stop Too Big to Fail. A bunch of other things were happening. Now the bill to audit the Fed is in trouble in the Senate. All of that did die that afternoon. And they've now admitted, this is mainstream news, it was not the fat finger. They said they don't know what did it, when clearly that was a manipulation. And so we're going to discuss that. And from the evidence he has as a former trader and somebody who researches this and as a BBC and Al Jazeera and RT reporter. Start over. Go ahead.
I designed the technology.
Absolutely. So, Max, go over this.
Look, I designed this technology in 1996. There are 132 patents that reference my patent, the Virtual Specialist patent, 5950176, for making markets with an infinite inventory for price parity across virtual securities. I created this concept. Now, Goldman Sachs, when they do it, when they commit this fraud, they say they're making a market. That's the code word for virtual fraud and naked short selling. Where have we heard that before? Where have we heard the phrase making a market over and over again in their defense? Bernie Madoff said that he's constantly making a market. That's how he was able to create these returns consistently for 10, 15 years. Well, guess what? Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein, and Bernie Madoff are doing the exact same thing. Lloyd Blankfein should be sitting in a cell next to Bernie Madoff. They're both market rigging, market manipulating financial terrorists. The evidence is so clear now. The only thing that keeps people from putting this guy in jail is because if they do, they have to face themselves in the mirror and realize that they live in a financial hologram. There's no basis for it. It's complete bull.
It was bizarre. The host of NBC Nightly News came out and said none of the money's real on Letterman last week, and he basically called it a hologram. But Max, you've called all this with precision. That's why I keep pointing that out.
He says he wants to go to a Federal Reserve system with zero reserves. One of the highest ups in the European central bank system said that, well, to be quite honest, and this was covered on Infowars.com, we just loan money into existence that doesn't really have any collateral or cash basis whatsoever.
So now they're going, hold on, Max.
Underlying collateral. There's no basis for any of this economic so-called activity. It's all just debt, piled on debt, and now the special drawing rights, which is going to replace the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency, all that is that all the debts that are associated in dollars, they're going to put those off the balance sheet. They're going to create a new world currency called the special drawing right, which they'll say, look, it's not encumbered by any of this dollar debt. All that's now disappeared in the black hole of off-balance sheet accounting, and they're going to load up the world with another 30 or 40 or 50 trillion in fresh debt, and the number of people in debt servitude is going to expand dramatically once again.
Max, I want to go over this point by point and talk about what's happening currently in Europe and the $1 trillion. It goes from 150 billion to 600 billion to $1 trillion in the space of 3 days. What's behind that? What these European leaders are going to do, what the bankers are going to do next to try to keep control of this. But to quantify what you're saying in layman's terms, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're transcending fractional reserve banking of you got $1, the bank can loan out 9 or 10, to just absolute derivative universe where they bankrupt the world by design. They create the new global currency. They announce their world government as they're now doing and saying, all of you must capitulate and kneel to Zod, like Superman kneeling to Zod, or we will just destroy everything and have a total depression. And we're now held in complete hostage to these people.
Right. The denominator in a fractional reserve system, as you just described it, is now zero.
So their God, magic checkbook, they're passing all these taxes in their own documents to bankrupt us even further, and then we give them all the real assets for just made-up baloney. I mean, this is, and they want to destroy the economy because they're in competition.
What's the fastest rising population in America? It's the prison population, and in the prison, you can get labor to work for you and be competitive with China. Why do you think they pass all these laws? 3 strikes, you're out. Stop by the, you're missing a taillight, go to jail. Because they need to compete with China on wages. So that's why the prison population is the fastest growing population.
And 40 million Americans now on food stamps, up from 33 million a month ago. Those are the new breadlines. Stay there, Max. Long segment coming up. It's just so amazing to be living this and to know that the average yuppie still only cares about basketball scores tonight when their whole future is destroyed. I want to talk about how their next phase, what's happening in Europe, and how you think we beat them. Max Keiser is our guest. We'll be right back.
We're on the march. The Empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
This was financial terrorism, a false flag attack, just like 2008. In 2008, they used fear to drive the market down. This time they did it digitally with their hands in there. I'm going to ask Keiser, how do we investigate it when all the major federal regulators are openly former J.P. Morgan Chase or Goldman Sachs? Meanwhile, Ron Paul, Euro bailout will lead to currency collapse. Congressman Bernanke broke promises that U.S. taxpayer dollars would not be sent to European banks. I want to take calls coming up for Max Keiser. Your question specifically for him, 1-800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. But they are wrecking the economy by design, waging war against the real economy. We'll put that headline up there, 40 million people now on food stamps. Los Angeles and others announcing they're not going to basically fix roads or sidewalks anymore. They're announcing all over the country that police are only there to write you tickets, not to respond to crime. Sheriffs in Texas and Ohio are saying, buy guns. We can't protect you. All we're allowed to do is raise money now. At least they have some moral compass and are at least admitting they're just pirates now. It is just unbelievable. Max Keiser is our guest, one of our top financial experts. Max, I want to go through questions quickly for you now here. Specifically, who are the culprits of the financial terrorism, A? B, let's then look at what's happening in Europe and how that's tied to this. And now they're admitting, even in the Associated Press, the euro may collapse. But the bankers aren't going to let that happen because that's their looting mechanism. Go ahead.